Hi, welcome to Overthinking Entrepreneur. I'm Megan, and I've had a successful online business for a few years now, and I think I overthought probably about 90% of my decisions along the way. Honestly, I just overthought whether I should say 90% or pretty much every decision in this intro. So if you find that relatable, you are definitely in the right place. In this podcast, I will help you get out of overthinking and into action so that your online business can finally start growing. Hi. So this week we are going to talk about getting off of the burnout cycle. And this is one of those things that I have been trapped in my whole life. Now that I look back, I have been going through this cycle myself for my entire life. And I think a lot of you probably have as well. And it's something that I have really been looking into recently for my own personal reasons because I think I'm stuck in more of a long-term burnout right now, which I'm going to talk to you about. But I did a big deep dive into burnout because of course I did. I'll tell you about that too. And I learned a lot. And they were things that they feel like things that I should know, but really putting them in the perspective that I got while I was doing this was really helpful for me. And I figured if this is helpful for me, I bet it's going to be helpful for a lot of you too, because I think a lot of you also experience this burnout cycle. So let me back up for a second. What do I mean when I talk about burnout? This is something that is very common in people with ADHD, but you certainly do not have to have ADHD to experience this cycle. It's basically when you keep yourself in this place where you put big expectations and pressure on yourself, more than any one person can probably handle, right? You put more on your plate than is realistic for you to be able to do, but you expect yourself to just like superhuman through it because you always do. And push yourself too hard. Maybe you finally make it through, and once it's finished, you crash and burn. And now you're feeling completely fried, completely burned out, and you take some time to rest and recover. And early in my life, this was kind of the cycle in the way that it would repeat for me. I would come up with something, I would push myself really hard to get it done. I would like move mountains, produce pretty incredible work most of the time, and then crash and burn and need some time to recover. And it wasn't perfect, now that I'm hearing it, like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like the best way to live, but it worked for me. And I was able to kind of accommodate and kind of plan for the burnouts and know that I was going to need that time to let myself recover. And so I just kind of rolled with it for a long time. And then once my son was born, that kind of changed, right? I no longer have the ability to give myself 3 days to lay on the couch and do nothing. Man, do I miss that. That is like probably the hardest part of parenting for me. And it's because I operated in this cycle. Like this is just kind of how I structured my life in so many different ways. I mean, even if you look at how I do different things, and I've kind of shared bits and pieces of this over the years, depending on how closely you follow me or how, if we're friends or not. But I don't do a little bit of cleaning at a time. I wait and then I clean the entire house. And then I'm like, oh, that was horrible. And then I don't do any more cleaning until it gets so bad that I clean the entire house, right? Like I operate in this way, and recognizing that I've always had ADHD and my brain is just wired a bit differently. And that's why I'm kind of predisposed to these cycles has really helped me accept a little bit more and stop kind of beating myself up for being this way. But it's also kind of allowed me to recognize that I've had myself on this hamster wheel for like most of my life, right? Push myself really hard, crash and burn, recover and repeat. And now that I'm in this phase where I can't crash and burn and recover, you would think that that would force me to get off the cycle. But what I realized is I kind of didn't. I just kept operating that way because it's all I've known and it's what's always worked for me. And it's, who I am to an extent. Not that I can't change the way that I do things, but it's kind of my default pattern, right? It's just how I've always done things. And so it didn't even really like occur to me. I mean, it did in a way, but at the same time, I just kind of kept doing what I always do because it's what I've always done and it's always worked for me. And, I always got an A. I always, pulled it off. I always, I just sort of did this to myself over and over and over again. And what I'm experiencing now is something that can also happen, and some of you might have experienced, where when you keep pushing yourself, when you're in a season where you have to keep pushing yourself, and, sometimes we do this by choice, by maybe taking on way too many things, putting too many things on our plate. Sometimes this is because something comes up in our life, like maybe, I don't know, something happened and you had to take on a second job for now. And so you just, you're constantly working, you're not having a lot of time to let, things happen, right? Where we can end up in these different cycles. It's particularly common, I was learning in my deep dive binge rabbit hole that I went down, for someone in a caregiving role. So parents or someone who has like so if you are a parent yourself or if you're caring for your parents or some other family member or a friend, whoever, right? If you have any sort of like caregiving responsibilities where you're not just responsible for yourself, but you also have to care for someone else who can't care for themselves fully, you can't just stop, right? Like I can't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Clark. Mom's tired today, so I'm just gonna lay in bed all day and do nothing." Like I just don't have that ability, you know? So, um, I think that if you've experienced these seasons where like things just keep coming and the things just keep piling up on your plate, we can enter kind of a chronic burnout, more of an ongoing where like one day on the couch isn't necessarily going to cut it because it's not just, oh, I did this short-term project and it burned me out and I need a little recovery time. It's like I am in full on burnout, like everything in my life. And I believe that this is where I've been for these last few months. And I've been experiencing some frustrations with myself of it feels like every task I try and do takes 6 times as long as it should. And should is a tricky word. It's some, I mean, even my therapist is always like, you say should an awful lot. And I'm like, I know, I know, I know. I'm trying to work on it. But, but, um, wow, where was I going with this? Totally gone. Nope, just forgot. So anyway, when you get stuck in this long-term burnout where you can't just give yourself that time to recover and you have to just keep going and keep going and keep going. Oh, there, that's where I was. Phew. Okay. I should have just paused and then I could edit it out. But anyway, I'll just talk. So when when I say it takes longer than I feel like it should, that's a loaded statement in and of itself, right? How long should a task take? I understand that. But also a lot of times what I'm referring to here is tasks that I have been doing for a long time, not new things that I have no idea how long they should take. They're tasks that I know how long they typically take me and how long they're taking me right now. And that's where I was like, what is going on with me? Like I just feel like things that aren't even hard take so much effort and feel like I'm moving through quicksand and like I'll sit down to work and sometimes my brain is just blank. Like I have barely posted on social media for a couple weeks. I have barely emailed my list at all. I'm actually recording this. So I'm recording this on a Thursday. I aim to put out new podcasts on Tuesday. I didn't put out an episode this week. And that's actually one of the things I'm going to talk about later on that I consider to be a good thing, that I actually consider it progress, that I was like, you know what? I don't have an episode ready and I could push myself to get one out, but that's keeping me trapped in my old patterns, right? Pushing myself to do the thing that I don't have the capacity for, but pushing myself to do it anyway, just because I feel like I should, because someone might notice that I didn't put out an episode this week. And that's just not, that's one of the things that I'm trying to really look at is, does anyone else care? I mean, probably. Like I follow a lot of podcasts closely, and when they don't put out a new episode for a while, I'm a little bummed, but it's not a big deal. I find something else to do, right? And so I have to remind myself that other people will do that and they may not even know what day my episodes are supposed to come out. There's certain shows that I know what day their new episodes drop and I'll kind of notice if there isn't one. And there's certain shows that they just like show up in my feed or whatever you call it in Apple Podcasts every week and I'm like, "Oh yeah, a new episode, a new episode." And I don't really actually register what day their episodes come out or maybe they don't even have a consistent day. I don't know, but so anyway, I it's kind of been adding up and I had to really take a look at, what's going on with me. And I had found a new podcast. Actually, it was the coolest thing. It's a podcast about ADHD and relationships. And one of the things, well, the name of the podcast is Sorry I Missed This, which if you have ADHD, you probably find incredibly relatable and you're probably cringing and feel a bit attacked right now, right? How many times have I started an email or a text with "I'm so sorry I missed this" all the time, right? So, but anyway, she had a two-part series. Oh, the other thing is that I think her name's Katie. I don't know why I don't look up. Well, I never know quite what's going to come out of my mouth because I just talk for my episodes. I don't script them. But I feel like every episode I'm like, I should have looked that up first. I should have looked that up first. I believe her name is Katie and she goes by Katie Saurus. But I was like, what is this? It's another person with ADHD with a podcast and there's dinosaurs on her cover. Like it was just so cool when I found it because I was like, whoa, what is this podcast? I got to check this out. So she had a two-part series on burnout and I was like, ooh, I'd kind of considered burnout might be what's going on with me a while ago. And then it just sort of, left my brain and never got a second thought. So I listened to her episodes and I was like, yep, that sounds about right. And so I decided that I wanted to learn more about burnout and from different perspectives. In her episode, her two-parter, she was speaking with a, forgive me, I don't remember if they were a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but about, recognizing burnout and some strategies for what to do. And I liked some of them, but I didn't feel like I was equipped to like tackle this on my own. So I was like, I'm going to do a little bit of more research. And I was kind of like laughing at myself because it just so happened that the stars aligned that it was a day that I was in the car a whole bunch and also a day that I was doing a lot of chores around the house. Like I had to do my like everything shower. Jeez, can't talk. Wash my hair and shave and like I hate that shower. Like I feel like most people like that. I'm always like, oh, it's so much. I had to change the sheets and do some cleaning and just like all these different activities that are individual things where I will be listening to a podcast all happen to fall like the stars just aligned, good and bad, on the same day. Where when I decided I wanted to really pursue understanding burnout better, I had a lot more time than I typically would in a day to just listen to stuff. So I binge listened to a whole bunch of episodes about burnout and getting out of it. And then I was like, of course I like it's just like the most me thing. I was just like laughing at myself when I was telling my husband about it. Like, of course, when I'm trying to learn about burnout, I listen to like 10 episodes. Like, it just like reinforces how I got here, right? Like I exactly in my personality what's innately there that led to all of this. So it just made me laugh a little bit. But I learned a lot. It also just kind of solidified some things that I already had kind of put together for myself. But just hearing it all laid out from the different perspective, because I went to different podcasts. I didn't just want to hear the same person talk about it. So I listened to a lot of, I listened to women talk about it. I listened to men. I listened to solo episodes. I listened to people discussing it together about how it affects them. And hearing all these different perspectives really gave me a lot of clarity. So, what leads to the cycle of burnout? Now, obviously, it's the action of putting too much on your plate, guilting, shaming, pressuring yourself to do it, and then crashing and burning, and then repeating. Right? I think that obviously is what causes the burnout. But I also started to recognize that there are some other specific things because there's people who have a lot on their plate and are nonstop going, 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 but they don't seem to get burnout. Now, of course, we only know what they tell us, right? We only, depending on how well you know this person, maybe they do crash and burn behind the scenes and we don't know that. But not everyone who has a lot on their plate is guaranteed to burn out. And there have been periods in my life where I did a lot but didn't feel burnout either. Like there's certain times it's not that having a lot to do guarantees that you're going to burn out. And actually, one of the kind of big revelations that I had during this, because I was kind of looking at it that way. I wasn't doing this on purpose, but I was kind of looking at it that way. When I would really kind of reflect, I was like, well, I don't have time. Like, where am I supposed to take the break? I've even said this to people, like, show me where I can take the break or show me what I can set down. Like, there's nothing. Like, I'm not doing a lot of extras. I'm already doing like bare minimum in so many areas, and it's already still not getting done. Like, where can I set things down? And so I had this mindset that I just had to power through and like maybe someday there'd be time for me to prioritize myself and taking care of me, but this is not that day. And what I realized is that the to-do list itself is neutral. It might have a million tasks on it, and that can look and feel overwhelming, but they're just tasks on a piece of paper or a computer screen or wherever you put your to-do list, right? It's just neutral. It's just a list of tasks that you would like to get done at some point in time. The list itself is neutral. The pressure and expectations that you put on yourself, that's what leads to the burnout. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. So I don't know if that will help any of you the way that it helped me, because I had in my head that like there's just too much. There's so many things. I can't slow down. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like there's just too much. And even do you just hear like how the energy that I just shifted into, like the frantic, overwhelmed energy, right? And that I heard many, many years ago, and it stopped me in my tracks. Someone say, getting overwhelmed isn't necessarily something that you can control, like that initial feeling of overwhelm, but staying in that feeling of overwhelm is a choice. And at first it kind of made me frustrated, and then I reflected on it, and then I was like, okay, I kind of get what you're picking up, what you're putting down here. And I've sort of feel like this really solidified that concept for me of like the tasks and what needs done is neutral. It's just sitting there. And it didn't even write itself. I wrote it there. I put it on the list. If the list is overwhelming, I did that to myself. I made my own list. So if the list is the problem, that was also me, right? But what I really realized was that the list is not the problem. My feelings about the list and the way that I am beating myself up for not somehow superhumaning my way through more tasks than any one person could do is the problem. The fact that I can't let myself relax because the list still exists is the problem, right? So, okay, let's dive into this a little bit bigger. I think not giving yourself a true break is another big problem for people that are prone to this cycle. And you may or may not relate to this one. It's really interesting. I've been talking to, well, I talk to a lot of people, just by nature of my business and people in my membership and my clients and the people in the free group and everything that I talk to. But so many people this year are feeling this way. I've noticed more so than in the past, this overwhelm, and there's just way too much to do and not enough time, and I just can't ever seem. Some people have the opposite problem where they are really great at giving themselves a break and they struggle to get themselves to like focus on their business or do things that are productive. So you may or may not relate to this part as much, but I have really been and this was not something that I struggled with in the past. When I had more ownership of my time and more kind of control of what my day to day looked like, I was pretty good. Like I would push myself hard, but then I would also spend a lot of time like playing Zelda, playing video games, doing something relaxing, binge watching a TV show. Like I balanced it out nicely when I had more time to do that. But now I am finding I am just not good at giving myself an actual break right now. Even when I say I need a break from business, you know what I do? I replace it with something else productive. Oh, this will give me time to rearrange that room. Oh, now I can go tackle all that yard work. Oh, now I can do this. Now, I even this week, I intentionally said I'm going to really minimize the amount of work I try and do after my son is in bed this week because a lot of times I stay up late trying to work. And I noticed that I was like, oh, okay, if I'm not going to work, maybe I should start planning what I'm going to get people for Christmas. Maybe I should do that. Maybe, and do you see what like instantly I went to, oh, then I should do this productive thing. Oh, I should do this productive thing. That does not give yourself enough of a break to actually get out of the burnout cycle. You're just kind of continuously piling things on and on and on. So you're taking a break from one thing, but you're being productive in a different way and repeat, right? And you never give yourself that true rest. So that's a big part of what can lead to burnout is especially if you tell yourself you're giving yourself a break, you tell yourself you're doing it, and oh, well, I'm not working. Like when you can rationalize in your head, well, I did give myself a break from X. And, we don't need to talk about the fact that instead I did Y and Z, but I gave myself a break from X. Look at me. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing good with that. And so we don't give ourselves enough of a break. And so we can't ever really recover. Or we recharge just enough that we're able to keep going, but not enough to actually feel recharged. Just enough that we can get up the next day and do it again, and then crash and then recharge just enough to get up and do it the next day and go again. And that's what I've been doing to myself is that I will, you know, stay up and I'll try and get some work done after my son is in bed sometimes. And then I will say, okay, oh man, I need to relax a little bit. And I'll like watch an episode of something and play little video games until I'm about to fall asleep on the couch and then I go up to bed. And it's like just enough that I can keep going, but not enough that I've ever truly felt rested in like years. And, you know, I have a 3-year-old. Like, I'm not expecting to feel wildly rested at all times. I understand that, like, this is also a temporary phase of my life. And so I also try and remind myself of that. But I think that's where I was keeping myself stuck was that thought of this is temporary. You just have to power through. This is just what life is right now. And, you just got to power through it. And I wasn't recognizing the long-term consequences that I could be creating for myself, which is that now I'm in this feeling, and it's weird. Like right now, I feel really good about this podcast. And like actually last night I sat down and mapped out I always write like bullet point notes. Well, I don't always, sometimes I just wing it. I know I sometimes tell you guys that I'm just winging it, but I try to map out just like bullet point notes essentially to make sure that I don't forget anything that I want to make sure that I include. And I did that and I was in the zone and I was so excited. Like, it's not that I'm not doing any work that I feel good about. I am doing some work that I feel really good and excited about, but my overall creativity and just like ability to sit down and get things done has just really been suffering. And I defaulted to being mad at myself, being frustrated with myself, because that's what I always do. And that's what leads me to this cycle, right? That's one of the things that keeps me here. Instead of asking myself, like, what do I need or why am I feeling this way? I was just saying, like, what do I need to do to be able to power through? What do I need? This has to get done. So, what can I do to make myself be able to do this? Right? Like, do you see the huge difference in the way that I was looking at myself and thinking about this? It's not how can I recover just enough that I can keep going? It's how can I actually recover? One of the things that I heard, one of my favorite podcast episodes that I listened to when I was binging down the rabbit hole, she used an analogy of your cell phone. And it really, like, just kind of the visual and putting it in these terms helped it click for me a lot. So, you know how when your phone battery gets low and you can swap it into low power mode and then it doesn't do as many things in the background, like it's trying to kind of conserve energy and different, like, or when it gets low and like you're watching it drain and drain and drain. So, okay, here's a good example. Let's say your phone battery is down to like 2%, and you're trying to watch a TV show and you don't have enough. So you throw it on the charger for 5 minutes and you check, and it's enough that you can get through the show. So you watch the show, but then by the end of the show, you're down at 2% again. You say, oh, I got to throw it back on the charger. And you throw it back on there for a little bit until it's just enough. And then you grab it and say, good, because I have to leave and run errands. And then you're in the car listening to podcasts or music on your phone. And then it gets down to zero. And when you get home, you're like, oh, I got to throw it on. Like, you're never giving it a full power charge cycle. You're never actually charging it overnight or, whenever you like to charge your phone and letting it reach 100%. You're giving it just enough juice that it can get you through the next task, and then it's drained again. And then you put it back on the charger, just enough juice to get you through the next task. And that's what I was doing to myself. And if that's what you're doing to yourself, I hope this helps you recognize so that you can stop. So that you can stop and you can actually give yourself a full charge, maybe not to 100%. Like, I'm going to be realistic with myself. I'm not going to assume that I can just break out of the cycle and go right to 100%. I know that it's going to take a while because I think I have been dealing with some chronic burnout. I've been able to still show up and, still do things. It's not that I've just like completely shut down, but I think what's been going on with me has tipped more into the chronic territory. That's not like I just take a long weekend to recharge and I'll feel better. My plan for recovery is going to look a little bit different. But depending on where you're at, you may just need a short break. You may need something longer. You may need more of what I'm about to talk about in just a minute here. So let me just make sure. Did I get everything I wanted to say? Yeah. So really what is leading to the cycle, obviously having a lot on your plate is the number one thing. But really what it is your feelings about what's on your plate. Recharging just enough and not really taking the time to fully recharge, and then the pressure and expectations you're putting on yourself and constantly feeling badly and never letting yourself. I don't know if any of you relate to this, but I sometimes have a struggle where I tell myself I'm going to relax, and like technically what I'm physically doing is the thing, but my mind is elsewhere. And my mind is stressing about the things that I'm not doing and beating myself up and like not present and not really giving myself that break. So really figuring out what you can do there can make a big difference. The other cell phone, this is where I got ahead of myself a little bit a minute ago there, was with the low power mode analogy. So this is one of the things that I'm going to be doing to be getting out of the cycle. So this is kind of a suggestion when you're experiencing that more chronic burnout, is to think about putting yourself in low power mode. So when your phone is getting depleted and you want to extend the battery life, you can flip it into low power mode, which is where it's not doing all of those extra things. And so I'm going to be trying to flip myself into low power mode through the end of the year as much as I can. That doesn't mean that I'm going to completely stop. I'm going to set down things that I think can be set down and really recognize which specific activities are burning me out. But instead of thinking that I need to take this giant break, which just is not doable for me right now, how can I conserve energy? How can I put myself into low power mode so that I'm not putting all this pressure and stress on myself and going, and then recharging just enough and then going, and staying in that cycle where I'm never going to get out of it, right? So that is one suggestion that I found to be very helpful, was to think about putting yourself into low power mode. And this is more if you're in kind of that chronic burnout. If you're in just like a short term, like I just finished a big project and now I'm feeling burnout, you don't necessarily need to do this. I mean, I don't think it'd be a bad thing, but you don't need to think about the low power mode necessarily. But these are the other two steps that I think need to be done to get yourself out of burnout and actually break the cycle. So not just, just enough so I can keep going, but to actually break this cycle and not keep yourself stuck in burnout over and over and over again. So the first is figuring out how you can give yourself time to actually recharge. And then the second is that you need to change the lifestyle you're going to be coming back to after your break, or you're just going to go right back into the same cycle. And that's the other mistake that I have been making, is that it's not even that I don't get breaks. And this is why I was feeling a bit frustrated with myself, I think, because we are very lucky to have very involved grandparents who love our son and want to come and see him and spend time with him. And my parents often take him overnight, sometimes even 2 nights. And I know there's many parents that don't have that at all. And so I was using this as like a beating stick for myself, honestly, of like, listen, you have way more help and you get way more breaks from parenting than a lot of parents do. Like, you got to just get it together. Like, they make it work, you need to. And like almost that mindset of like, you're lucky, you should feel grateful, and you just have to keep going. And this is just what life looks like right now. And it wasn't. So I would take the breaks sometimes. I would often still be productive through them, right? How many times, and probably even here on this podcast, how many times have you heard me say, "Oh, my son was with my parents and I tore down a million trees in my backyard, or we painted the whole house, or we didn't," right? Like I still often replace them with different kinds of productivity. Um, just, okay, I don't have to do parenting, so I'm going to have a work marathon, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that instead. So I was still not really letting myself rest, even when they did have him. But then also, I wasn't changing what I was coming back to because I felt like I couldn't. I guess I just wasn't ready to look at it in that way. And so I would take a break and it would help a bit, but then I would come right back to the lifestyle that's burning me out. And then what do you think happened? It burned me out, right? Because I'm right back into that same lifestyle. So figuring out how you can give yourself time to actually recharge and building that in more, but then also changing what you're coming back to. So I will give you some specific examples of what this is going to look like for me, or at least what I think it is. One of my biggest challenges is sticking to a plan. I made a plan that I feel really good about. Sticking to it and catching myself when I start falling into my old patterns is going to be the challenge. So we'll see how that goes. But I am going to stop trying to work every night after my son goes to bed. That's a big one. Take my evenings at least a couple times a week to just recharge and to just do what I want to do instead of thinking that I need to work and I need to do this and oh, that needs to get done and this needs to get done and all of that. Instead of just instantly turning to my to-do list and thinking that I should fill something in, check something off, figuring out how I can actually let myself rest. And I don't think this will be forever. I genuinely do like working at night. When I have a project I'm excited about, when I'm not burnt out, like when I can get myself out of this chronic burnout, I do think that sometimes I will want to work at night because there are certain projects that my ADHD brain just really struggles to get in the zone and make progress on when I know I'm going to have to stop in an hour. At night is when I can work and no one needs me and no one is going to come interrupt me. And so I do think that I will go back to working at night sometimes, at least a couple times a week, but it's not going to be the expectation for myself every night anymore moving forward. And I'm going to take nights where I don't work at all, and I'm going to not beat myself up for that. That's the other problem. Every now and then I have had a night where I don't work, but I still feel guilty about it, or I still find myself thinking about what I should be doing or not really letting myself actually relax with that time. So building in more times that I can recharge. My husband and I have also been talking about like a couple times a year, every few months, when my parents are taking our son for the weekend, instead of staying home where it's too easy to do our normal stuff, what if we just like find a cool Airbnb and just go stay for the weekend and just relax and do nothing? I think that will do both of us a world of good. So I'm trying to think about what can I do kind of in like my day to day? What can I do? Another small one. I So I'm late for everything. I really struggle with time management. I'm sure you guys probably know this if you've been following me for a while. And I'm also really bad at mornings. I stay up late and then I have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, and it just is. So, um, I get up before my son and I do my workout and I shower before I get him up. But oftentimes I'm running frantically, trying to finish getting ready and run in immediately and go get him. And I'm going to try to just sit down for 5 minutes. Once I'm ready, before I run into his room, unless like there's an emergency or he's freaking out or whatever, right? I'm gonna just sit down for 5 minutes of just quiet. And before I rush right into the next phase of my day, because I'm always rushing from one thing to the next because I struggle with my time management. And so, it's always been how I operate. So that's another one that I think is really going to help me is just 5 minutes of quiet when I can in the morning before I go in to get him. Not feeling like I have to work so much at night, letting myself actually relax. And then finding a kind of a sustainable system of a little bit more extended breaks, like these weekends away that we're going to try and start incorporating in. So that's my plan for giving myself actual rest and recharge time. And then in terms of changing what I'm coming back to, so I'm still thinking about what this might look like on the personal side of my life and how I might change things. But I did make some big decisions about my business and how I can change things. And one of those is not doing so much launching of live stuff. And this was a hard one for me to come to terms with because for most of my business, this was my favorite thing to do. And I still love doing it, but I'm finding this is a big culprit in me staying on this cycle because when I'm doing something that's going to be live and people need to join, I have to sit down and decide when it's going to start. I have to pick the start date and then I have to be marketing the whole time and also getting stuff ready in the background while I'm doing it. And I used to have a good idea of when, where I wanted to how long it was going to take me there. That's a better way of phrasing that. I used to have a better idea of how much time I was going to need to get ready. I would come up with an idea. I would sit down and kind of flesh it out, decide that it was what I wanted to run with. And then I would be able to have a pretty good estimate of when I could plan to launch it, when I could get started. Okay, it'll start on this date. I'll do blah, 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 blah. It was just like pretty inherent to me that I would know about how much time I was going to need. And this was also during the time where, say, I estimated badly. Well, that's okay. I'll just stay up late, push myself, get it done, and then I'll take a few days to recharge after. No big deal, right? I can do this. This is how I always do things. So I was in kind of that cycle for so much of my business. And like I said, it worked well. And I've been trying to reconcile that with what my life looks like right now. And right now, I have to rely on babysitters or when someone else has my son for me to be able to get work. And sometimes babysitters cancel last minute. Sometimes they can't come. Sometimes whatever, right? Most of ours are family who come and help out for free, which I'm super grateful for. But because they're family helping out for free, sometimes they can't come. Sometimes they have other stuff they need to do. They're not like paid help. And so, that has been a challenge for me. And then also, you just never quite know when your 3-year-old's going to have a day where they're kind of a monster and you're incredibly fried at the end of the day where you thought you were going to have time to work, but you actually don't. And especially when you've got yourself in some chronic overwhelm and every task takes longer than you think it's going to. I was just putting myself into these situations where I would plan, like announce when something's happening and be working on it. And really stressing myself out trying to get it all ready in time and just like drowning trying to get it all ready in time and feeling like there was just too much and not being able to give myself those breaks because the thing had to get done and the date was coming and people were signed up and they were ready for it and I had to get it done. And for a long time I thrived on this, like giving myself that challenge and then pulling it off last minute was like such a big amount of satisfaction for me. And someday I might be back to that in my business. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I can't tell you what the future is going to look like. But for right now, I had to really take a hard look and say, this is not working. This is a big part of what's going wrong. And I had recognized this and I even intentionally tried to give myself more prep time. But like I said, you think something's going to happen and then, someone can't come and I lose that chunk of time, or I was just feeling too fried that day and things weren't getting done. Everything was taking longer. And I just found that like I was not doing a good job of estimating when something would be ready. And then it was a big contributor to me putting even more pressure and tasks on my list and just getting overwhelmed and not able to get off this cycle because the date was coming and it has to get done. So I am going to intentionally not focus on launching live things through the end of the year. I am, and if any of you were in a place where I was asking about this, this is why I did want to think through the end of the year. Like, what do I want to do? What do I want my business to look like through the end of the year? Like, so that I could have a rough idea. I have not historically been someone who plans ahead. I'm not good at planning ahead. I'm not good at sticking to my plan, like I talked about. I just kind of wing it in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to magically become someone who plans everything overnight and like maps out my whole year, but recognizing where I'm at right now and what I need to do to help myself be free of this burnout, I need to do less live launching right now. I just do. And so I was thinking ahead to, okay, what do I want my business to look like for through the end of the year? And I had an idea when we did summer camp back in July. One of my squad members mentioned that it might be fun to do one in January because, those are kind of the notorious months, right? July and January, everything's slow. You're slow. You're having a hard time staying on track. And I was like, that could be fun. So I went through and just asked people who had done summer camp if they liked this, and they loved it. They were in, so I'm excited. So I do think I will be live launching some sort of camp in January. I'm going to figure out what exactly that's going to look like, but I'm I'm already thinking about that now, and that's why I'm bringing this up. Normally, this would not have been on my radar yet, but I started to think backwards and say, okay, if I think I want to do that, that means a lot of the stuff is going to need to happen like the second half of December, which is Christmas time and that week between Christmas and New Year's when it's hard to think straight and do anything, right? And so I was just like, okay, I don't want to be trying to get camp ready during that time. That's going to be too much. I'm going to have to start earlier in the month. So I'm just really trying to think ahead of less live stuff that has an official start date. And when I do want to do those things, how can I give myself an extra, extra, extra long time to get ready to make sure that I don't end up staying up late because I have to, because this has to be done by a certain date. And then I'm going to spend more time just focusing on my membership because that really is the best place for you to come work with me. Even the things that I release, like the membership's pretty much an all access pass to most things that I do. So coming into the membership, even if I am launching stuff, you're still going to get to do it and put more focus there because that gives you a lot of the benefits of the live things that I do, like getting to work with me and getting my feedback and the motivation to get the stuff done without having to create and come up with all these ideas and then create all the resources and then make the sales page and then set up all the emails and all the, million things that go into creating all of this new stuff. And really focus some time on my membership. I have had so many ideas I wanted to implement in my membership for so long and just, keep doing other stuff instead. So really making some of these improvements that I've been wanting to for a while and focusing there is another thing that I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to be working on, I have a lot of ideas for some new buddies I can create and some upgrades I can make to some of the just digital products and self-study and things that I already have that I can work on behind the scenes and release them when they're ready. But they don't need to have like a live component where there's a start date that people need to be able to plan for. I can just work on them and I can even tease what I'm working on. And when it's ready, I can say it's ready. You can buy it now. Yay. But there doesn't have to be this date set in stone that is looming on my calendar and haunting me and making me feel like I can't ever relax because that thing's not ready yet. So those are some of the changes I'm going to be making through the end of the year in my business so that I can hopefully get through a notorious time in both business and personal life while still recovering from my burnout and recharging my own batteries. So not doing so many live things that have dates and pressure involved, focusing more on my membership and then more behind the scenes products, whatever, I guess both work there, that I can kind of do at my own pace and lean into what I find fun about my work instead of pressure and deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So, what could this look like for you? Maybe you need to think about where can you take more breaks. Maybe there's one day a week that you totally do nothing and you just veg on the couch. Or maybe this needs to be more micro moments built into your day, or maybe it can be both. Maybe you need to think about on a larger scale, how can you give yourself more of that extended break, like I'm thinking about with our weekends away? And then when you come back, what are the things? I think it's helpful to start with what's really the biggest source of your overwhelm and burnout at the moment. And when I thought about that, that's when I realized the live stuff, the dates, of the having to be ready by a certain date was a big contributor to what's been going on with me. And even when I try and be mindful of not putting that pressure, it still kept happening. So looking at your business, what are you finding is a big source of your overwhelm? What are you finding makes you feel this way? What are you finding are the things that you feel like you have to stay up late to get done, or the things that can't be set aside. Like, how can we make some changes? And these changes don't have to be forever, but how can we make some changes right now to take care of you and get you back to 100% or at least, like 90%? Because if you're like me and you've been operating at like, I don't know, probably 25% for who knows how long, it's going to be a game changer to get back to like 90%. And think about the other thing that my therapist said to me that was so true. I think she's so right when I was just discussing all this with her was, what's going to be really cool is how much better you're going to feel, but I think you're going to find that the amount that you actually produce, like your actual output, is the same. And I was like, you know what? I bet you're going to be right. And that was another just really crazy thing to consider. Like right now, I am spending however many hours in a week where I am like sitting at my computer, staring at it, trying to like shame and pressure myself into getting something done and not getting anywhere. I tasks are taking longer than they need to because I'm so burnt out, right? Like there's so many like the amount of hours that is spent on my business or thinking about my business versus the actual completed work right now is not a good ratio. And when I get myself off this cycle and let myself actually rest and recharge and build a business that's going to support what I need right now, I think I'm going to spend way less time on my business, feel much better as I break from this burnout, but also still get the same amount of stuff done. Like that really, I think it's going to be true. So it remains to be seen. We'll see if that one's true, and we'll see if I'm able to stick to this plan. That's going to be the hardest part, is not letting myself get excited about an idea and running with it is definitely one of my challenges. But I think this has really been the clarity that I needed to finally make some real changes that make a difference in how I've been feeling with all of this. So I hope that this episode has given you a lot to think about and maybe given you some of your own clarity and realize how you might be keeping yourself stuck in the burnout cycle, and whether you're just doing kind of more of the mini burnout events where you push yourself and then recover and repeat, or if you've kind of tipped more into the chronic burnout territory where I'm at right now. There's things you can do. There's changes that you can make. There are ways. And just a couple weeks ago, I was saying to people, like, show me what I can set down. I would love to. I would love to take things off my plate. I don't see what can be set down. So if that's how you feel right now, I understand. And you might just still need to sit with this and give yourself a little bit of time to process through it and start to really look at how you have your life designed right now, because things can change. They can. I remember thinking, like, I just can't. There's just no way. Like, show me what can come off my list. And like, um, and now I'm like, wow, okay, there's a lot that I can change. And you can do the same, but sometimes it really just takes that perspective and giving yourself that space and time to process. I'll just tell you, I think it really helped me when I spent that day just like binge listening to other people share about burnout and how to break out of it. And then that night, I intentionally did not try and do anything productive. I did not try to make a plan. I did not try and do any work. I just relaxed that night and let things marinate in my brain. And when I woke up the next morning, clarity started coming. And it can happen for you too. I hope that you will give this some real thought. And like I said, if you're hearing this and saying that's great for you, but there's just nothing I can set down, I was saying that just like 2 weeks ago. Okay. I really was. I hear you. I'm not trying to invalidate you. Like that was me too. I bet there's some stuff that can be changed. And to be honest, if you don't, like burnout can hit a point where like you need to be hospitalized. I'm not saying this in like a fear mongering way. I don't think I'm anywhere near that point. Like no one needs to be worried about me. That's not why I'm bringing that up either. But what I am saying is like you're going to hit a point where you're forced to slow down, and it's probably not going to be in the way of your choosing. So it's as hard as it can feel and as impossible as it can feel, you taking control of this and saying, what can I change that I want to change and that's really going to work is going to be much better in the long term than hitting that point where you're so burnt out that everything just like has to. And when your body isn't recovering the way that it needs, like oftentimes you'll find yourself getting sick more. You'll find like just all of these different signs that you really need to slow down and you're pushing yourself into this chronic burnout. So, okay. I hope this helped you. I Yeah, I hope this helped you. I didn't think about how I was going to end this episode. I don't really have a good suggestion other than if you have been feeling this way, you're not alone. I am there with you, and here's my plan. Here's what I've learned. I hope that you can take it and apply it to your own life and make your own plan of how you can get yourself off of this cycle. And if you want some support along the way, I would love to chat with you. Please always feel free to message or email me. I would love to have you come into the membership and support you with this. I think I'm going to start building some tools related to burnout into the membership because I think that it's just the type of people that are drawn to me are very prone to have this happen. And so just know, don't beat yourself up. You're not alone here. Many of us struggle with this, but you can break the cycle. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard. And maybe I'll even try and remember to give some periodic updates on my podcast episodes here of how I'm doing breaking the cycle myself. But we can do this together. I hope this episode inspires you to go take action on something you have been overthinking. As much as I wish you could, you cannot think your way to success, so promise me you're going to go take some action today. Head over to overthinkingentrepreneur.com to find all the cool stuff I've made for you over the years, like my free guide to getting more social media engagement and my Facebook group, Dynamite Entrepreneurs, which has a free course on social media basics.